so much for tuning in. This is Dr. Sarah Langley, and I'm your host with my co-host, Dani Robinson, licensed social worker.
Yes, ma'am.
And we are here. But I tell you the truth, with Dani just lights up. She helps me to press through, right? Because I tell you the truth, Dani, to be honest with you and everyone to be honest, I was a bit tired. I was a bit tired
Yeah.
today, just a little bit, just
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. And I was concerned about, I won't use the word concern. I don't want to say it that way. I was
Yeah.
going to say it that way because there are many people who are leaders, who are influencers, who has a platform and they feel like they cannot say anything, that they cannot be weak, that they cannot be vulnerable. And I always want to set the example of no, yes, you can. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that it's in our minds that people are going to now they depending on us, and therefore we can't be weak. We have to be strong. We got to keep pressing through. No, we don't.
Right.
There's a moment where there are people in your life. I had this another revelation. It's like the things that we wish we had. If we didn't have certain people in our lives, or our parents weren't the way that we wanted them to be, or our kids are acting the way that they are, or we're estranged, we're not talking to certain people and things like
Right.
that. I always find it amazing how God still puts exactly what you need in your life.
Right.
So life is going to play out exactly like it's supposed to. And there are people. So the reframe, just looking at it differently, everybody, reframe is that there are people in your life, even if up to alleviate you or alleviate, that's the word, to release you, from you having to 24/7 handle business because people need you. There are people who are actually there if you just kind of look and be like, oh wow, there are people who are in my life to really help me to kind of take a break and to allow you to relax, relate, and release so
Right.
that you can get yourself together. It's like it's a mindset, and the thing is, in regards to how intergenerational trauma happens, it's like we'll talk more about that, but it kind of just ties into this is what we've been carrying generation to generation to generation to generation to generation, and it's time for us to release. It's time for us to release
Right.
it. It's time for us to release it.
Definitely.
So this is what the conversation is about, and just to be able to tie in everything from what we post all week in regards to asking you the question, what is racism? The moment that you experience racism was when X, and then you got to talk about that. I asked today if you had what do you think? Do you think this is going to die down in 8 days, 30 days? Is it or is it going to keep going? Is this different now? So
Right.
just asking you these questions as well as asking you, how do you feel? Like I check in with you in the beginning of the week, midweek, and now towards the end of the week. How are you feeling? And for
Mhm.
some of you, y'all been doing, like y'all been pacing yourselves. You went from I'm sad, I'm drained, I'm tired, to now you got to the end of the week. I'm great, I'm awesome, and that's great. And for those who are still struggling, those who are still sad, those who are still drained, it's okay as well.
Yeah.
Have your moment. Have your moment. Have your
Right.
moment. So we're going to help you out today, help you to
Mm-hmm.
release this trauma that it seems like you're not only caring for yourself, but it seems like we're carrying our ancestors' trauma. It's like it's just,
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
just different here this year,
Mm-hmm.
this time around. But
Right.
we have each other to actually be able to help each other stand up and to let we have each other to kind of like stay down when we need to. But you're
Mm-hmm.
covered. You're not alone here. So,
Yes.
Dani, please, what you usually bring in the news. So not sure, or before you bring the news, didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to add to that, and then you can go right into your segment.
No, you know what? I think that's a perfect place to lead off from, and that it's important for, I think, for each and every one of us to just check in with one another. Sometimes we get busy and we get caught up, in what we're doing. We're out here, fighting the fight, do what you got to do, sharing what you got to do, protesting. I know I was driving through town, and I believe it's if it's Breonna Taylor's birthday today, and I saw a memorial that they were putting on, like a standing vigil. It was very touching that they were putting on in a town for her. There's so much going on with one another, so it's just important, I think, for everyone, just to, and I mentioned this a little bit the other day, just to share, like, about checking in with one another. Are you okay? And then when you're sharing, we don't always have to put on that front, I'm fine. When we know, no, I'm not fine. And if you ask me a few more questions, I might burst out crying. And it's okay to get that release. It's okay to allow yourself just to have that space to feel what you're feeling, to express what you're feeling. Because the more we hold it in, the more that we bottled up, it has no room to express itself, and it's going to, it's going to be within your body. So it's important for us to check in with one another, really asking each other, how are you? No, how are you really doing? And then checking in and, feeling comfortable enough to being like, you know what, I am not okay. Or, okay, you know what, I wasn't okay, but now I am okay. It's okay to express how you're doing, but just that we are being accountable to each other and just like, are you really doing okay? Is everything all right? Are you okay? Family okay? Is everything good? And, allowing ourselves to have that space. So I think that's really important, to just giving each other that space to really share how we're really doing, because there's so much going on in everybody's plate right now,
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Well,
So
thank you for that, Dani.
yeah,
I want to say thank you to everybody who is joining. Sharia,
definitely.
thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. L. Williams, thank you for joining in and being with us today. She loves my painting. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, L.
Yes, yes,
Everyone who's watching, we really appreciate you. And to check in, to ask you, y'all put in the comment section. And Dani's people, y'all put in the comment section. How are
yes.
you feeling right
How are you
now?
doing? Yeah.
How are you feeling? Put in the comment section. We want to see the words. One word, describe it. How are
Right.
you feeling right now?
Right. Exactly.
I'm a bit tired. I'm just a little bit tired today.
And it's okay for you to be tired.
It's okay to be for me
It
to
is
be tired.
okay
Yes,
to be tired. Yes.
yes, yes. Now, how about you, Dani? How are you feeling?
I was definitely glad it was Friday today. I tell you that I was tired. I woke up tired. Somebody was like, "Really? Do we have to go in today?" I said, "Yes, but we got to go in today." But I was like, you know what? Make it through the day. We're just gonna. The day went quickly, so I was happy for that. And then when the end of the day come, I was sitting there. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta go. I got things to do."
Right.
Trying to wrap up a few things, but we made it through. The end of the day came, and we're here, so we're all right. We're all right.
And you call this Freedom Friday. Was there's
Freedom Friday. I used to call this like way back. I think shout out to my girl Janelle Moniz in Hawaii. We used to have on Fridays years ago. YouTube was still new. We used to play like old throwback 90s hip hop videos, back and forth playing like, girl, I bet you don't remember this. And I'm looking up songs and stuff like playing on that. So I don't know, that turned into our Freedom Friday moment, I think then. So shout out to Janelle. That was what's up. So
cool.
yes, Freedom Friday.
Freedom Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, I don't know why I had to call people out. Cherie, L, how y'all feeling out there? Everybody, y'all let us know, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
The issue has been, there's the opportunity. We made it through the week. All that's going on since the beginning of this year, at the time of this recording, from month to month to month to month to month. And we, again, are here to really help you to know how to release, to have this conversation, releasing this intergenerational trauma that's trapped up in your body, trapped up in your members, your cells, trapped up in your mindset, trapped up in you, that we are trying to make sure, and not just to try, but we are attempting in our expertise and our skill to really help you to know how to release. What really moved me to do this today was, again, seeing the post that you all have responded to in regards to racism, in regards to what racism looks like to you, to seeing, the allies, that's been standing with us, and their fight, where they had to excommunicate people or unfriend people forever because values weren't aligning with their own. And to then actually having conversations, I think I may have mentioned this, that I have clients that's over in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, and just what we see on TV versus them being there is a different ball game.
Right.
And so I wanted to summarize a conversation that I wanted to share so that we get again, a perspective as to what's going on and how trauma continues to have us to continue carrying it from the next generation and the next generation. But I'm hopeful that it's different this time. I asked that today. I said, is it going to die down, or are we going to continue to ride this wave, or ride it till the wheels fall off, or shoot, keep riding even when the wheels are falling off? Are we going to continue with this conversation until it turns into action, until it turns into results, solutions, that now racism is over?
Right.
So, in talking to one of my clients out there, their concern was they didn't know how to really express what was going on. They've just been nonstop helping the community because the community is hurting. As a matter of fact, they shared things about how their children are afraid to go outside the house, or their children are afraid to be in the house because they're afraid that it's going to get burned down. They see white supremacists driving around their area every day now.
Wow.
They hear gunfire. They hear gunfire all the time. They live near hospitals, so they're hearing the sirens every single day. They hear the helicopters every single day, and they're reliving this trauma. Let me see. They also shared they're upset that they're now feeling like they're walking in fear because the things they used to do to try to have an outlet, they feel like they cannot do it now.
Right.
So now it's like compounded trauma. It's like it's just sitting within them. Because how do they have an outlet like they used to when they're right in that right now over in Minneapolis?
Right.
One thing that was beautiful out of this, and I've seen this actually in different locations throughout the day. Dani, you can tell me if you've seen this. So they went to the people, my client and many of them have went to, I guess, near the location or somewhere in Minneapolis where they had, was that at a church? I forget where they were, but they said that they took a moment of silence and they knelt for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yeah.
And one of my friends had posted, or they sent me the pictures over in Philly where they were at the art museum and people had laid down.
Wow.
Or they knelt down for like minutes and 36 seconds there.
Yeah.
And wow, it was just, that was the release for my client though.
Yeah. Because
my client kept everything in for the past couple of weeks. They were just nonstop trying to take care of everybody else. And to now have that moment to kneel down and then to picture what my client did, they laid down because they wanted to be in that moment of George Floyd.
Yeah.
What was that like for 8 minutes to be down there and not be able to move or do anything? And my client had a big release. They went away somewhere and they just bawled their eyes out because they needed that release.
Yeah.
That was the thing that opened up.
Right. Wow.
The deep thing about that, and then we can have conversation about this, was outside of the fact that my client is multiracial, so they're really upset with their other side of their family because their family is white, that side of them, and to not hear any or get any support or to act as if what they're going through doesn't exist or that their children that they're concerned with have to deal and face with this and don't feel supported.
Right.
And the last thing we talked about was they're angry, but they're concerned if this is going to go away or is it going to die down? Is it because to them, they're like, well, all this is happening and it seems like things are supposed to change, but what's going to really happen after this? Because right now to them, it looks exactly the same as other times in times past.
Yeah.
So if this looked exactly the same in times past, why are we going through this again? Is it going to just be another band-aid?
Right.
They're having a hard time believing that it's going to change, and they're just super angry about it, angry and
Right.
scared, because they're like, everything seems to be cool, or we're trying to get through,
Mm.
but with the trauma that they're experiencing, what's going on right there, right now in Minneapolis still, and they're like, we've seen this before, so is it going to change?
Right.
So I'll open
Right.
this up for conversation. Dani, what's your thoughts? Everybody, y'all can put it in the comment section as well. What do y'all think about my client that just I shared what they're going through over in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
It's a ball game over there than what we're seeing still on
Exactly.
TV and everything else. But what y'all thoughts are? Y'all can share it. So Dani, what's
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Yeah. Um, trauma can come in so many different forms. Trauma can come directly through direct contact. Trauma can come indirectly through just experiencing, visually seeing, hearing a story from somebody else, watching something via video. Trauma can come in so many various forms. And then to be bombarded with trauma on a daily basis is so hard. I often think of, our folks when we are so bombarded with trauma so often that we tend to normalize it
Yes.
in our day to day. We tend to normalize police brutality. We tend to normalize how we're treated as inhuman, and it becomes a normal and almost expected type of behavior. So, just to see, our when children are being just impacted like that, and I want to say impacted, I'm thinking, some people like can think, I'm not going to say people are going to justify, but what we're experiencing right now is definitely trauma. It's definitely trauma to be exposed to this type of behavior, this type of assault all the time on a daily basis. You're talking about, I remember once in my area, there was a helicopter. Everybody's like, wait, what's going on? What's going on? Can you imagine like that every night after night after night?
Right.
You hear shouting, you hear screaming, you hear shooting. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. And how the children take that and internalize that is very difficult to process. But important thing about trauma, sometimes that the issue with trauma is that sometimes it can't escape, especially for children. They're not sure necessarily how to process that. So it takes really that talk therapy, trying to bring it out from one part of the brain where it doesn't necessarily process. So it's continually bouncing around and flashbacks and recall, and then trying to talk it out so it's processed to the other side of the brain. But it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. And this makes me also think about like the indirect trauma, or the what do we call those? It's when it's subtle but it's continuous. When we're talking about the microaggressions,
Mm-hmm.
those are also trauma, because I'm thinking about when they also do, when we've looked at in the past in the doll test, and when it was asked, I don't know if anybody remembers, kind of a similar study. It was broadcasted on TV, and I think Oprah had publicized it. Matter of fact, where is Oprah and Gail?
Oh Lord. Oh Lord.
Anyway, moving along. The doll test. The doll test, and talking about kids, they took, a lot of young children, actually one from a school that my brothers and I actually went to. One of the kids was actually wearing a shirt that was actually the logo of our school. I didn't even know they did this test there. And they asked them, they asked Black children, I think some white children too, they asked them which one was the pretty doll. And they had a white child in front of them and a Black child in front of them. They said, which is the pretty doll? Which is the good doll? Which is the bad doll? And for all the good and the pretty, they chose the white doll. And then all the bad, they chose the Black doll. And then they asked them, why is that the good doll? It's like, because she's white. Think about that. Like, as children, they've already picked up from indirect, whether it's from the TV, whether it's from socialization, whether it's from school, they've already picked up the innuendos that we put out, that this is what it is. And they see themselves, as the Black doll. So that trauma is very important to address what's happening on a daily basis, both direct and indirect. And what you're just talking about, the silence. I didn't get to watch the whole funeral service for George Floyd, but I did hear my girlfriend, shout out to Stacy Dawkins, she posted about, or she shared with me that, they took in the funeral, they took a 9-minute silence because that's how long they were on his neck. And she said she cried like a baby. Like that was just such a trying to get through 9 minutes, and imagine somebody suffocating, asphyxiation for that long period of time is traumatizing to even think about. And I love how somebody interviewed Jane Elliott, who's done the eye color test, and talked about that. Talked about, it's that lack of empathy. That's inhuman
Wow.
to have for another human person. That's inhuman. So it's important that we talk about this trauma, because even if we're experiencing it directly, indirectly, we're talking about it. It's traumatizing to think that somebody could lack that much empathy for another human life. That's trauma.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I tell you the truth, it is so interesting, the lack of empathy.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that and another example of another client that I have who's a young white guy, and how we had this dialogue to help him to have the empathy
Yeah.
that's necessary for him to at least acknowledge and validate what people of color are going through.
Yeah.
So just want to say, hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is Dr.
Hi
Sarah
guys.
with Dani Robinson. And just want to say thank you for my coach, Tawana. Thank you for tuning in, coach. Really appreciate you tuning in today. Hey, Dr. Carla Cook from Jersey as well. I wish I could
Hey,
say
Jersey girl, what's up, girl?
Thank you for tuning in. Hey, Narissa, how you doing? Thank you for tuning in as well. Thank you, everybody. We're hoping that you find this of value. We're talking about, well, I titled it, Can Black People Be Racist? And then I said, being able to address and release intergenerational trauma. And we had talked about how Dani just had talked about what trauma looks like, what the experiences are, what is it like for us, and how it can absolutely have us to carry on and just be so heavy, with the fact of what we're experiencing, the triggers that's going on. So like for my client's case, having to hear sirens, to having to hear the helicopters, to having to hear gunshots, to the concern every night of having to stay up and watch their home because of the fact that they're concerned that someone's going to come and try to burn it. One thing that's going on too are the bombs, these homemade bombs. So their spouse had to go out and try to locate the bombs that are placed around in different areas of the area.
Wow. Yeah.
These homemade bombs. It's like, where do they get a break, right? So it's just constant trauma that they're experiencing at this point. Not even having a chance to really just breathe and grieve to even know how they feel. I asked the client, I said, well, tell me what happened, or tell me where you were, or what that was like on the day that George Floyd had died. And they said, that's a great question. I can't even answer that. I never had a chance to stop and process everything.
Yeah.
So if they're over there and not able to, like process or to acknowledge and to grieve how they feel, how about you all? Use this opportunity to really check in. We provided that this week for the past couple of weeks, just helping you to identify how you're really feeling. It's okay to not be okay. And while we're looking for solutions, we even stated that, what type of solutions we're looking for. I post that today. Do you think it's going to die down, or is it going to continue on? If it's going to die down, what can we do to keep this going? And if it's going to continue, if you find that this is going to continue, then what do we need to do to make sure it continues?
Right.
So, but first and foremost, you got to take care of home. And home starts with you.
Yes.
You have to make sure that you rest, relax, relate, release. Even if you feel like, okay, I'm restless, I really want to do something, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. Look, let's get centered. Let's get centered. Make sure that you're okay first.
You know what?
Don't just say that you're okay and we can tell that you're not okay based on the posts and things that you're sharing and how you're, saying forget the police and everybody else and I'm tired of all this and I'm ready to do something. All right,
Right.
that's a sign for us. Like, okay, you know what, you're not okay. Just
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that you need to relax because there is a difference. There
Yeah.
is a difference. So I'm not gonna recant that, but I want to preface because sometimes, like like I said, I was on a couple of programs and presentations where I said, you know what, I'm not interested any further of having to explain how I really feel or have to pepper it or have to, tone it down because it is making people uncomfortable because of how I am. You're interpreting
Yeah.
it as one way, but it's really me being passionate. Why are you stuck on the fact that I'm raising my voice or my tonality or, my hand gestures and all that? Now it's like, oh, you don't know what I'm going to do. Come on with that. We're not doing that.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
is what it is. It's who we are. It's where we are passionate. We are
Right.
expressive. And that's just
Yeah.
what it is. So
Mhm.
depending, you use your discernment. The difference between when you are unable to manage your emotions and feelings, when it seems like it's getting the best of you and it's ahead of you,
Yeah.
versus you're being compassionate, you're being expressive, and it just is. So there's a difference. But if we're watching your posts, because I know I do, I read
Mhm.
every single line to see what's going on, where the theme is. I do. That is me. I do. I am so nosy.
Thorough. You thorough.
Thank you. I'm
Thorough.
nosy. I own my stuff. I am nosy, but I as well. So I took the example. We got to be, we got to be set the example and talk about, taking ownership, right? Because
Yes.
everything that we
Yes.
say and do is supposed to be setting an example for people to follow.
Right.
So all that to say, please make sure that you're okay first. Check in with yourself. You
Mm.
follow the routine that we share with you all week.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? What
Mm-hmm.
are you thinking? Is this
Mm-hmm.
my moment to lament? Is this my moment to grieve? Is this my moment to be happy? What moment am I in? And what is going on? How am I processing this? Like, what does this mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
One person, Dani, everybody, there's one person that had posted on my post today. They were like, I'm tired of. I asked them how they felt, and people were like, they're great, they're awesome. But then this one person was like, you know what? I'm pissed.
Mm.
And so anybody that said they were pissed or they were drained or whatever, I shared a little bit on what they can do to help release that. And so
Right.
they just said, you know what? I'm just tired of pretending to be sad.
Mm.
I said, well, guess what? You don't have to be sad.
No.
I said, just because the collective is sad
Yeah, that doesn't
doesn't
have to be
mean
your
that you
experience.
have to be sad. Right, Dani? Right,
Yeah.
y'all?
Yes. No, exactly. Exactly. I just want to touch back on that point that you just made, just really emphasize that and drive that home of taking care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. Just like it says on the airplane, you have to put the mask on yourself before you address the mask on anyone else. Just like if you are a parent, you have to take care of yourself. If you are down and you are sick, that just makes taking care of the child that much more laborsome. If you are a caregiver and you are down and something happens to you because you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of the other person. It is, while sometimes mentally we forget that and we think, well, no, if we just give all, that we will just receive. No, you have self-care is
Yes.
so important. You have to check in with yourself. You have, like, that's a non-negotiable. And on top of that, I usually tell my clients, you have to do self-care daily. That's because some people's like, okay, that's your self-care day. No, Monday through Sunday, every day you need that time to check in with yourself, because you can't neglect yourself and hopefully think that you're going to catch up way over here. You got to get to over there. Your body and everything might shut down. Self-care is number one. And don't get us wrong, because those of us helping out others, we get the same way. It gets hard for us too. So I'm talking to you. One guy puts it this way. He's like, I'm telling you, but I'm talking to me. So it's me the same way. Learning to put myself first. I'm like, no, I need that time. I need that boundary. So make sure that you are doing self-care. Absolutely non-negotiable. Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. I'm not saying like 24 hours a day, but every day. Have that self-care.
Ma'am. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am. I am going to listen to your advice. So I'm going to take care of my self-care. This is what I did. So everybody follow suit. So we were supposed to tune in at the time that we have this recording set. And I said, you know what? I've been in this office slash bedroom all week, past couple weeks, counseling, and and I'm being passionate. I enjoy what I do. I love what I do, and yeah, I'm just kind of tired of my room. I'm tired of my office. I'm tired of this office, and I didn't know it. But here's the thing: I didn't know I was tired of my office. Isn't that interesting? All I knew was sleep, wake up, do my ritual, and come right to my office. Just, all I have to do is roll over, walk like a couple feet or a couple, I don't know, and then just sit in my office here and lift up, turn on my computer and here all day.
Right.
All day, like being in the morning to share tips on how to help you to have your day, then counseling all day, and then what? Then like have a moment to pray, and then get ready for you all, right? And I said, you know what? And I eat in between wherever I get to eat, use the bathroom wherever I get to use the bathroom, drink water throughout the day. Right. But my family they were missing me. My family was missing me. Yeah. And I'm like, well, you have to understand, I'm called to the people. This is my calling. And while it is, I have every justification to say, look,
right.
You all know what y'all getting into. Daddy, you know how I am.
I know.
I know. You know me.
I
my
know.
friends. I like, look, y'all know me. So look, y'all just kind of, y'all gonna have, it's almost like I was telling them to take a back seat. Yeah. And then as the time went on today, I said, I had a moment to break away and to sit down and eat with my family. Eat with my family. I said, look, I'm going to see y'all when I see y'all. Yeah. I belong to y'all, great, that's fine, but y'all gonna give me a extra 5 minutes so I can have time to be with my family and to hear Daddy play the guitar, singing his heart out. Because many of y'all know my story with my dad. Y'all followed it. So just for him to be here and to play his guitar and to sing his heart out, it was just awesome just to sit in that presence. And then to sit with my friend and get the chance to eat and just enjoy at least 10, 15 minutes. Just to not be in my office. Right. So it was like, it's like I'm actually sitting in my kitchen. Wow, I'm actually sitting in my dining room. Wow. And I say that to say, sometimes we got to physically move out of a location, right? Yes. It makes a world of difference. You don't have to be in the same spot every day. Sometimes you're going to have to, manipulate your room, manipulate the flowers, manipulate the pillows, like just change up a little bit. That's another actual easy tip in terms of being able to help shift your mindset or to regroup and recenter. You don't have to stay in the same place at the same time all the time. And I didn't even realize that until I had a moment to decide to do that. So now it just helps me to kind of refresh, regroup, and just be here even the more, because of that small, subtle change in my mindset by not just being in here all day, every day for the past X amount of however long. So y'all, I would love to hear y'all thoughts until we now go into the real conversation, or everything that we were saying, of course, was real, but go into what we are presenting with you this evening. But
you are not a machine.
I'm not a machine.
You are not a machine.
I'm not a machine. What I thought. No, you gotta fool me. Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning in, Sherrod. Hey, Darren. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, Stella from Hawaii. Hope you and your husband are well. Hey, Monique. How you doing? Jacoby told me to quit fussing. You talking to me? He said quit fussing. Jay. Hey, Jay. Hey, Tanisha. Thank you for tuning in. Jacoby said family first. Those are those are the things that centers us. All right, Jacoby, don't have us bring you on here and teach us and school us.
Okay, all right. And shout out to Aisha Jacobs, Cuzzo, sharing on the timeline. Appreciate it, sis.
So thank you, everybody. You're absolutely right, Jacoby. Family is first. Yeah. Just as much as we are first. Right. Before anything, we are first. Our Father is first. We are first. Family. And then whatever else we have to do. Right. So that is the decency and an order. But you make sure that you get yourself in order first. And not just solely so you can be there for everybody else, but just because it's just the right thing to do by yourself for yourself. Yes. Definitely. So real quick, just to say, so the client that I had, 20-year-old young white man, and he was just sharing about what this has been like. This has really been agitating him, really anxious about what's going on and what's going on in the country. And he's not in a position to go out there and protest. And trying to help him to release and unleash the tension, the anxiety that he's been having. So we got into the conversation about if he, I don't know how we, I can't remember how we got into the conversation, but he has a couple of Black friends. And this was a pivotal moment because today I had a conversation with a white, a Caucasian American, a white woman, and asking about racism. I said, your first, tell me your first experience with racism was when. And so the majority of people have been sharing have been Black. And then there have been a couple of white people who shared about racism, their racial, their experience with racism. And so my clients have been asking me, how am I doing? How can they be an ally? My white clients. And so this one was, he was trying to understand, like, what are we going through, what we are experiencing. So long short of the conversation, he talked about his friend. I asked him, well, how is it going for your Black friends? He's like, I love them. They're great. They're amazing. I have 2 close Black friends, and I love them to pieces. There was a situation where he's so political. He's so like an activist. He's young, and he gets like all these threats all the time on social media. And so one day he shared about how he said something, anti-police, and all of a sudden he gets a call, or this white woman had threatened him on, so well, not threatened, but they said something to him on social media. Then all of a sudden, he said the FBI had called him or came to his place of work about this anti-police stuff that he had said on social media. And so his friend, so my client was like, he didn't know if his friend was telling the truth. He's like, come on, that can't be, like, come on, it's okay, dude. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. And this was the moment to now have that teachable moment. Although I will say, being in these therapy groups where we're like, you know what, we need to process our own trauma, and we're therapists, right? We're therapists. We're like, we have to process our own trauma, and it's a bit more tiresome. And my client in Minnesota has said the same thing. It's a bit tiresome to be on the front lines and then still have to make time to explain or to help them to see and understand. Initially, I was like, you know what, I'm cool, I can do it. But now I'm looking at it from that space and that place, it's like, yeah, it's like, it's not on us to have to end racism. We didn't create it. So for us to now have to, because there are many people who seem like they just never knew that racism existed, it's like now we have to explain. And even if the possibility of having to explain, they may still not even get it because they're not in our space. So with this client, it was an amazing conversation because I had to help my client understand that even if you believed it was true or not, the thing is that is a possible experience that he has or have had, because as opposed to you looking at it from your space, because he was able to use an example which I used back on him. His same friend have his stepdad. His stepdad wasn't getting along with the guy, and so his friend stayed with my client. My client asked him, well, what does he want to do? His Black friend. And so my white client told his black friend, like, you know what, if your dad is being, mean and physical with you, then call the cops on him, bring the authorities in. And so his friend was like, no, I don't want my dad to die. I don't want nothing to happen to him. And so my white client was like, well, why would you, he said it to himself, like, well, why would he think that? Like what? Like, why would you concern yourself? And so my client was like, and that's when I realized that I was misinformed, that my experience isn't his experience.
No.
And I didn't want him to feel like I was belittling his experience or anything, but I just did not understand. I will never understand Black experience. So Dr. Langley let me know, was I belittling him? Was I wrong to not believe him about the FBI? Like, please tell me. I respect your decision. Please tell me just tell me, just be straight up. I said, yeah, you were. I said, it's just that you don't understand the Black experience, like you said. And the problem is that for you, it may not be as far as someone calling the FBI on you because you said something that was against the police.
Right.
But because of the fact that it is an experience, that it does happen, reported and unreported, that is that experience. That is his experience. That is people of color experiences.
Right.
So next time, what you can do is empathize.
Right.
Empathy. Acknowledge and validate how he feels. You're
Mhm.
trying to make him not feel bad by saying, "Come on, man, you know that I can't believe that," but rather just say, "You know what, man, I empathize with you. You know how you feel is how you feel. You're valid with how you feel. You know you're worried, you're concerned. You know, so I get it, man. I'm here. I'm here for you."
Right.
That's the best thing you can do ever. And I just felt that that was like a breakthrough. You know,
Right.
like I felt that he was open to that conversation, and he's
Yeah.
young.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
compared to if y'all go to my post about the racism and the conversation I'm having with some Caucasian Americans about it, it's like not so much. It's like it doesn't seem like they're open to it. My client was open. He said, "You know, I'm open to this conversation because I'm looking at it from my space, and I wasn't looking at it from everyone else's. I didn't have to.
Yeah.
I didn't have to understand from your space.
Right.
So now I'm open and understanding that I shouldn't make it a more of a big deal about the burning buildings or the rioting. I should make it more about the lives that's being lost
Mhm.
or the lives that were lost that really resulted in what's going on." Like he was
Right.
just so open, and I just thought that was just amazing. And
That's
I
beautiful.
and so if to be able to help one person in that fashion
Right.
see the light and to understand about the empathy, I that made me feel like you know that there is progress and that instead of looking at it from like, oh, we got a long ways to go, someone now understands and now it helps him with his black friends to
Yeah.
now him being an ally to his friends. So
Right.
I don't know. What's your thoughts, Dani? What's your thoughts about that, everybody?
You know what? I think that's so true, and that having that conversation to verbalize how to empathize for somebody else that you don't understand their experience, or because you've never experienced it.
Right.
So sometimes we think like, how can y'all not know? But you could, I mean, because they haven't experienced it unless they possibly have experienced it with us, and then like confused about what happened. Speaking of that, there was once there's an episode of on Netflix, comedians in cars getting coffee with Jerry Seinfeld, and my favorite one is him and Dave Chappelle. And the show's about really nice cars he gets, and that like they pick up somewhere in their neighborhood and go have coffee. So I don't know exactly what state they were in when he got probably in Ohio maybe with Dave Chappelle. And so they were in the car, and at one part in this episode, on camera, they get pulled over. The only episode I've seen Jerry Seinfeld, maybe it's happened before, because I don't know, he might have a heavy foot. The only episode I saw him get pulled over. And Dave Chappelle starts having a fit. He's like, "Yo, man, you better slow down." I mean, it's not funny because that's experience. Like most white people don't understand. Like a lot of us get anxiety. Police get behind us, we get concerned because we understand there is possible imminent threat.
Right.
So he's like, "Yo, brother, you better act cool." Like he's trying to explain to him. And Jerry Seinfeld's like, "Bro, what are you talking about? We're gonna be fine." He's like, "No, we're not."
Oh wow.
So they had this moment, but Jerry couldn't process what the fear and the anxiety that Dave Chappelle was having. And he was trying to explain, it's like, no, this is what we experience on a daily basis. This is a problem. Getting pulled over is not an easy incident. I think him or Chris Rock explained, "I'm famous from 5 feet. I'm not famous from 10 feet. Okay. Shots can happen from there. Okay. I'm famous from up here, but not from way back there. So I'm still in danger until they get right up here on me and be like, oh, bro, I love you. They don't love me from back there." So to see that interaction, sometimes we expect, because we've told our story, because you've seen the reports, because there's been so many incidences where it's just like, this is happening, but it still doesn't register. So the fact that you gave him the tools about how to understand, how to process, even if he doesn't understand directly, but to hear somebody else's story and how to help them process it and be like, this is your experience. I haven't experienced it, but this is your experience. And how to validate that is
Exactly.
monumental, because that's going to help him in his relationships, but also to help, hopefully he takes that off to other people that he knows, and talking about race and talking about how they experience that and how you can help support them with it.
Absolutely.
So that's monumental. Monumental.
That is awesome. And so thank you for sharing, Dani. I make it do what it do. You gotta check my resume sometime.
Okay, all right, check that bio.
But this is what we do, and the point is that look at what y'all are doing as well. It is not about comparing what the next person is doing. Look at what you are doing and
Right.
making a difference. By being on here, by sharing this out on the platforms that you are on, because you never know who's watching, who is following you.
Right.
So make sure that you share this out, because sharing is not only just caring, but you just might, in fact, save a life in the process. You may be able to convert folks, you may be able to now get people to see the light. By which I want to ask real quick, can Black folks be racist? Now we're quiet. Jacoby said no, Blacks cannot be racist. Say more, Jacoby. Let's see. All right, he said no, Blacks cannot be racist. They can be bigoted. So Black folks can be bigots. Is that what you're saying, Jacoby? I was in race relations class in college years and years and years ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember my professor, Black woman, so it's like half white, half Black in the room. She said, I want to pose a question out there. Can Blacks be racist? We just sat there to listen to what she thought, right? Because we were thinking for the most part, we all thought that yes, Blacks can be racist. She said, no, Blacks cannot be racist. And we all got quiet. White folks, Black folks, we all got quiet. And it stuck with me though for so many years. I was talking to my friend Elle, where I asked a question, I posed it, I said, what is racism? And got so many different, not so much different answers, but if you were to kind of theme it, there was maybe like 3 top answers that were similar,
right,
about racism. And it seemed like there were times where it went into maybe it was prejudice or discrimination, like if racism is a class, or what's the defining moment, or the factor. I can't even think of the word I'm looking for.
Pivotal.
We'll go with that. Like, which one? What makes it different from anything else? Like, what makes it that Blacks cannot be racist compared to whites being racist? And in looking it up, I said, you know what? Let me just go ahead and look it up and see what the Webster Merriam-Dictionary has to say. And pretty much it was. I actually didn't look up in the dictionary. I found an article that talked about it. The difference between Blacks and whites in terms of racism was about the power behind it, or the structure set up.
Yes.
The structure that's set up. So for a Black person to be racist, how can they when the structure is not set up for them to be? Versus for whites, where the structure is set up for them to have white privilege, to not even need to know about any other race or culture. It's their choice if they want to. Mm-hmm. And what supports that in regards to they can, for the sake of the point, can get away with certain things than other people, other races cannot. While all of us, any other race, certainly don't seem to have ability to get away with things, or on top of it, we can follow the rules, follow the laws, and still something happens to us. Right. The rules and the structure is set up against us. It's not for us. So that said, that was the differentiator, if that's the word I'm looking for, between the Blacks and whites can blacks be racist? And from what my professor has said, was pretty much that. Like, no, blacks cannot be racist.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe can be prejudiced. We can, discriminate, but racist? No.
No.
What's your thoughts, Dani? What's your thoughts about that?
Yes.
Join in.
No, that's actually 100% facts. We actually talked about that just briefly the other night, and going over like just what is racism, the definition, and then what is prejudice, the definition. And exactly that. They are systems and power that are in place that one person, the power struggle is that one group, racial group, can suppress the power of another. So blacks are not within power to suppress whites. Only whites are in power that can suppress every other group of color. So no, we cannot be racist. We have what was one article or the one book that I had recently looked at. It was like The Color of Law, a forgotten history of how our government segregated America, policies particularly put in place for how to separate the groups in power, how to minimize and distribute and destroy power structures that are trying to build. So no, blacks and people of color cannot be racist. Not at all.
Okay. So there y'all have it. Blacks cannot be racist. As a matter of fact, Jacoby had said most people misuse racism.
Yes.
And that racism is about power, not preference.
Thank you.
So, white people, black people cannot be racist. And I had a colleague, so she was on my post today. Shout out to you, Deb, in regards to her experience of her racial experience being white, where she had shared about she was young, she was like 5 and 15, where she was dating or liking these two black boys. When she was 5, little black boy gave her a ring. Maybe it was her the son or the boy's mom's ring, not sure, but she had experienced the mom scolding her black son for giving the ring to this little white girl. Yeah. And then at 15, she shared about how she was, I think she was dating a black guy, and the black mother had called her a white devil whore. And she didn't know that she didn't understand like what that meant, but she felt that that was a racial experience that she had. So I asked her, just like I asked those who came on the post who were white, I asked the question. I said, look, I'm just asking just to ask. This is not to put you, to put you on blast or to set you up as if like, I'm being racist to you. I'm asking the question, what is racism to you? And one thing Deb said that was really good is when a race hates one another based on their internal narrative or internal conversations that they're having about it. That part. And I said, okay. I said, that's good. Let's talk about that. So the issue is we don't even know the context about why. First of all, for mom calling you a white devil whore was wrong. Yeah. How you feel is how you feel about that. That was wrong.
Yeah.
Now let's go into the conversation.
Right.
Because I had to first, because she wouldn't have hurt me if I was like, okay, if I dismissed her experience.
Yes.
So exactly. To acknowledge and validate her experience.
Better drop that mic. Drop that mic right there. Let's just pause so everybody pick up what we just said.
Lord, while she takes a drink of water, right, on my behalf. So I had to first validate, acknowledge her experience, to then for her to hear me,
right,
to empathize with her. And I said, well, long short of the conversation, because I gave her like a whole dissertation. That's just what I do. But I was like, the point is that it's not, we don't know the context of what those two mothers were thinking. Because here's the thing, this is what's different. Those moms may have been reacting because the first thought was probably like Emmett Till. Do we all remember that?
Yes.
We all remember that.
Yeah.
He supposedly whistled, and we find out 50, 60, 70 years later that he didn't. But he's not here. He was only 14. He's not here
Mm-hmm.
because he supposedly whistled at a white woman.
Right. And even if he
Who
did,
lied, who lied.
right.
Now, towards her, I don't know if she's dying, whatever, I can't remember, but she's.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know where the reaction was at, or the reaction is, okay, look, who knows what those mothers were thinking. They're like, okay, I just don't want anything to happen to my son. And that was their choice as mothers concerning their young children, their young sons. Albeit right or wrong, we have to understand the context. And so does that now make them racist because of the fact that they called you a name, or they scolded their son for giving you a ring? As opposed to reading all the other different experiences where there was one gentleman who said that he was in the Air Force, or he was over in Germany, and he said that there was a military, he called them military brats, but the white kids somehow tied a noose around his neck, had him on a stool, and left him there. And thank God his sister found him. Wow. And took the noose off of his neck while the people were coming back to finish him. Those experiences, that part. And there's countless others who are sharing their story. Primarily, many of them talking about how they've been called a nigger, whether they were at a mummers parade or somebody was driving by and they called them a nigger. And what was interesting, everybody, is the fact that this all happened when they were young.
Yeah.
Jesus. Chronologically, we are the age that we are right now. But when we have a traumatic experience, when we have a violation that has happened to us, we're still back at that age.
Yeah.
So there are many of you who are listening to this, who's going to watch the replay, who have shared their experience, who are still 6 years old, who are still 5 years old, who is 17 years old, as opposed to the age that you are now because of that violation, because you knew that something was wrong. And then the thing is that you never really said anything. This is your first time sharing it on social media when I asked you the question. And why did I ask you the question? Because it's time for your release.
Yes.
It's time for you to be released from this situation. It's time for the trauma to be released from your life.
Right.
There's too much going on in this world, in this country, for you to be continually having added on compounded trauma. We're already carrying the trauma and the atrocities of our ancestors. We already carrying it. And now this year alone, this is putting too much. So something has to give. So here's your release today.
Yeah.
This is your release right here and right now. It's time to decide. The big operative word is to decide. You already took the step and sharing it. For all of you who shared it, we commend you.
Yeah.
We're proud of you that you took the step to be honest, to be open, to be vulnerable, to let it go. Talking about it releases it. Writing it out, when you typed it, releases it. You made the decision that you are not going to be held by that situation anymore. For anyone to ever disrespect you or belittle you or discount you or invalidate you, no more of that nonsense. This is your time right here and right now to let go of that trauma by deciding. And because many of you had taken that step by writing it out, being open about it for your first time in 40, 50 years, congratulations to you. It is time for your release from this intergenerational trauma, from this racism, from anything that you have experienced that you knew was not right. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. And two, because you didn't say anything, it's okay. Maybe it wasn't okay because you didn't realize that, wow, why is it that I don't know why I feel the way I feel about white people. I just can't put my finger on it. I don't know why. Well, that's part of it, because now it became part of you by not saying anything about it. But until now, you're letting it go. You're letting it go, and you're letting it go to now create a new narrative for you. You're letting it go. so that now it opens the door for a new narrative for you. So I'm going to give you a homework assignment. I'm notorious for that. Before I do, Dani, everybody, any questions, comments, y'all can go ahead and just share. What's your thoughts
Oh
about
my
that?
goodness, that was, honey, that was a word. That was a word. You was in it. That was a word so much, because you're right. So many people don't realize that they get caught up in that moment where the trauma actually takes place, and that, like we talked about, it doesn't release until you actually take a moment to actually release. So again, this is a safe space for you to have that moment to release that, and to, so you release so you can move forward. Because I mean, think about how many of us have gone through those moments and have never addressed it, never spoke on it, never released it, and continuing to experience where you recall it, and you're having this moment. It's like, I've never actually talked about that. You are in that space, and it's time to let go. It's time to get free.
Amen.
It's
Freedom
time.
Friday.
Freedom Friday.
This is your
Yes.
time.
Yes.
So Dani set it off by talking about this as Freedom Friday at the time of this recording. So it is your Freedom Day. It's
Yeah.
time for you to be released. Another word that I have for you, because I'm just flowing. Some of y'all
Yep.
know how I flow.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that we've been trained and conditioned and programmed to think that we're supposed to carry it.
Yeah.
Jesus. We act like we're supposed to carry, and I say this respectfully to our ancestors, as if we're supposed to carry this pain from generation to generation to generation to generation. No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't have to. Just like it's never a wonder. I want to give a shout out to you, Juliet, for obeying the Lord's voice. Because when she said, you know what? I don't want to pretend like I'm sad. And I was like, you're right. You don't have to feel sad. It's because if you're not sad and everybody else is. Same point.
Yeah.
You don't have to carry the trauma, everybody. You don't have to. It doesn't mean that you're dishonoring. It's not dishonoring our ancestors. If you choose and decide to not carry the trauma, if anything, you do a benefit to our ancestors by releasing them as well. Release them too. It's time for us to be healed. It is time for us to be healed. We don't have to be known as a race where we're downtrodden or we're victimized or, woe is us. No, you don't have to. You do not have to feel sad. You don't have to pretend as if you're sad. If you're happy, be happy. It's okay. But we do not have to carry this intergenerational trauma anymore. That's not us dishonoring our ancestors. They didn't even die and go through the hell that they went through for us to continue to be this way.
Yes.
What's so beautiful about, and I tell you, when I start crying, it's like, it's so deep. Dang. When I got to see my 79-year-old dad, who almost died last year. For those who follow my story, y'all have seen the videos, the pictures that I put out there. And this man is playing his heart out at 79. When I thought that they took his voice away, he wasn't going to be able to play anymore. And he's able to play today. From 1941, when he was born, to now, he has seen so much. He's experienced so much. But the people before him, his family, his parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, they've done what they've done to get to where my dad is. My dad was able to reap the fruit of their labor by one major thing of many major things. But one point that I want to make to drive this home is that my dad and the older people had a chance to see a Black president go into office when it was never thought of in our come on, our grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, great-great-great-great-grandparents' time. They hoped for that moment that maybe policies and rules will change. That maybe one day there will be, a change in the land. My dad sung this song today, "There will be peace in the valley for me." Certain songs that it's come up from, because he flows in wisdom, he flows in prophetic, like he just flows, or at least in the wisdom part. And so everything was set up for today to help you to know that your labor is not in vain, that you're not dishonoring yourself, your parents or your great grandparents or your ancestors, if you decide today that you just don't want to be traumatized, recognize that this is your moment for release. Just make the decision. You can't go from being traumatized to not being traumatized if you didn't decide that you no longer want to be traumatized. And of course, it takes us as therapists to help you along the way. Please do not mistake that in terms of, oh, it just sounds, Dr. Sam make it sound so easy. All I gotta do is X, Y, and Z. But it does start with you. One thing we're not doing is carrying you in this thing. You're going to have to put the work in and put the effort in and make the decision to no longer be traumatized. That's the first step. Decide. When you decide, the doors do open up. It does. It does open up for you. So make that decision that, you know what, you're not going to carry this anymore. That it's not an honor to really be traumatized. Because sometimes we just feel like, okay, well, we're being strong and you know, we're just representing, and I'm not being weak. I want to be strong. Everything is in decency and in order, because sometimes it can wear and tear on you. Stress is a deadly silent killer. You're stressed out, maxed out, burnt out. Come on, what? You're no good to no one. Trying to press your way through. You're maxed out, burnt out, stressed out, hoping and praying that it will, you know, go away. It won't go away until you decide to not let it be there anymore. And then you're going to be led to do the certain things that you need to do necessary to not be stressed out. That's how things work. It's just really common. I was about to say common sense, but for the point, you don't have to be traumatized anymore. So take the precautions or the necessary things that we said for y'all to do. Share it. If you don't want to share it on the forum, that's fine. Reach out to us. We're here for you. Or you can do it in your own home. You can just take a book out, piece of paper, and start writing out your experience. And then, well, first of all, make the decision and then start writing it out. My experience with racism was when, or whatever issue or violation that you have experienced whenever you were young. Because many of you felt like you could not say something, going back to racism, and I'll stop for a second, was the fact that you felt that something was wrong. Many of you kept it to yourself, because if y'all told your mom, I was like, did y'all tell your mom and dad? Y'all said no. And possibly because you didn't want nothing to happen to your mom and dad.
Right.
That's the issue right there. That's the issue. That's what makes it different when it comes to racism. For us to say something and then something happens to all of us.
Right.
Somebody else talking about their experience and okay, you move on. That's what I shared with Deb today. I said, you know, you can move on. If you decide, you know, your decision is, okay, oh, I didn't get the ring and I wasn't able to be with that my black boyfriend anymore. Or all that happens is, and not to dismiss or discredit, but it's like, okay, you can just not date black men. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can decide to not date black men. Like, oh, well, you know, I tried, move on. But those boys, if they did decide to be with you, the concern that their parents had, which are valid, because it can happen, of making that decision to be with them, that it could have been, and not saying that it was going to happen, but we never know, because the sad thing is that the possibility,
right,
something could have happened. That's the difference. So, look, y'all can go ahead and jump in. Dani, everybody. Hey, Chrissy. Hey, Chastity. Hey, everyone. You go ahead. Y'all can talk back to me. Hey, Andrea.
That was a mic drop. That was a mic drop right there. And even what you were saying about you know, that carrying that burden, you know, a lot of times I think we normalize that, or we associate that with what we're supposed to do, because we carry so much. We carry so much day to day. The microaggressions, the things we experience, we're used to carrying on so much. The thought of releasing things makes us feel uncomfortable, or makes us feel bad, because we're supposed to carry this weight, or we think we're supposed to carry this weight. But that's not true. That's not valid. We can't live in that space. We deal with hypertension. We deal with high stress issue. I mean, just naturally, we have to release to allow ourselves to move forward. And like you're saying, that our ancestors didn't bear that burden just for us to shackle ourselves to it.
Exactly.
They did not. That is not what they persevered for. They persevered and pushed through to allow us to push through. So no, we have to release that. And we can't normalize just having that large burden over us, that yoke and continuing to carry on and thinking that we're doing right by them or justifying that, that's what we should be doing for them. We got to release. We have to release.
Okay, so we're going to help y'all release it. So
Mm-hmm.
Jacoby, since you've been our scribe for all this time, we're going to ask you to list down what we're about to tell you so that now you're going to help us to help everybody else on what to do, what the steps are. So Jacoby, thank you so much for your responses. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate you for showing up, because see, there'll be no show here if y'all weren't showing up, right? Well, not really. We will still be going on regardless, because there's always a replay. But we just thank you that you could have joined anywhere else, but you decided to join here. So we're going to go ahead and list out the steps. Dani's going to share what you just shared. I'm going to share what I just shared, and then we're going to give you a homework assignment, and then we're going to call it a day. So Jacoby, if you're ready, go ahead and start listing for us. So Dani, you just explained the reason why we have been carrying it for so long. So you can just kind of just say, like bullet points, then what it was, the things you just said, but then say, okay, well, this is what you do or this is what you don't do type thing, kind of frame it that way.
Right. So, I think that, identifying what I like to call it a yoke, because I think about that big oxen yoke, right? That yoke over your neck. So I like to use that for a visual, but think about those heavy things that are burdensome to you. Think about those things that physically or can sometimes weigh you down. I want you to think about it. I want you to close your eyes if you get a moment to visualize what is that you feel that's weighing you down. And then I just want you to list it out. Take a piece of paper and just list out the most burdensome things that you feel. I want you to take those out and write those out, whatever they are, whatever feels like that's coming to you, that's flowing to you, write those things out. And then after you've written those things out, those most large and burdensome things, I want you to take some time, and I want you to take a moment to take a few deep breaths. I want you to take a really big, deep inhale. Usually do it, see if you can do it for a count of 5, just really big, deep inhale. And I like to, at the end, take maybe another breath and hold it there. And then I just want you to take a really slow exhale and just exhale it all out. And I want you to do that a few times, just taking that really big, deep inhale, and do that really deep exhale. I mean, after, even sometimes just doing those really deep breaths helps you just to relax. I know once somebody said, it was a study done, if you are breathing more than 12 breaths per minute, you are hyperventilating. So it's definitely that allows you, kind of bring you to present, bring you to moment. But I want you to visualize yourself releasing those large and heavy burdens when you're doing it. So when you're inhaling, that's all that yoke, that's all that heaviness. Hold it. And then I want you, as Dr. Langley said, I want you to take a minute and purpose release it. And that's all I got for that one.
All right. So thank you so much, Dani. So Jacoby, where you at, man? So visualize the yoke, y'all. So to help start the motion of being released from the trauma, visualize the yoke, that heavy burden that you've been carrying, from the racism that you've experienced to the trauma that you've been experiencing, from all the stuff that we have been witnessing and been involved in. You visualize and picture that yoke. Then, Dani, you said write it out, right?
I want you to write it out. I want you to just visualize whatever you feel immediately comes to you. Write those things out. What you feel is like the biggest thing that's weighing you down, that's burdening you. I want you to write those things down. And then after you get those down, I want you to just do that deep breaths again, just that inhaling and then exhaling.
Those deep breaths. You take a deep breath in. Let's do it together real quick one more time so y'all can know how this goes. So everybody put your hands down to the side, sit up straight. You're going to take a deep breath in through your nose. So breathe in with us. Breathe in. And then hold. And exhale out through your mouth. Then take another deep breath in through your nose. So breathe in. Inhale in. And then hold. And exhale out through your mouth. And take one more deep breath in through your nose. So breathe in. and hold. And exhale out through your mouth. And then shake it out.
Yes.
Shake it out. Take out your head, your arms, your hands. Shake it out. Because as human beings, we're the only ones that don't shake out trauma.
Right.
Animals do. Animals do. We
Dog.
don't. We just keep it on, keep it moving. Not anymore. If you want something different, you have to do different to get different. So let's start doing differently to get different results. So visualize the yoke, reassociate is what we call it to, whatever comes to mind concerning your trauma, the racism, whatever you experience, write them down. No holds barred. Don't question the thoughts. Just write them down because you're releasing it out of your body. Because if you don't, it shows up anyway in your actions, attitude, and behavior. If you still try to be, gun ho about it, cavalier about it, and you're still holding it in, then guess what? You're going to internalize it, and then that's where it's going to be like all these different issues that's showing up in your body, in your space, in your peripheral, everywhere because of the fact that you keep trying to hold it in, and now you internalized it. Let it go. That's part of the process as well. Again, we're just giving you some quick and dirty tips that you can help yourself out. It's going to require therapy. So y'all can come see me, drsarahlangley.com. You can always reach out to me from there, from our website to check me out. In the meantime, when you are visualizing the heavy burdens, the violations that you had in your life, you write them down, no holds barred. Then you take your deep breaths. You take that all in, inhale, hold for 3 seconds, then release it out. And you're going to feel a difference. You're going to absolutely feel a difference because you made the decision to now release yourself from the trauma. Mm-hmm. So the exercise that we want to give you is, this is powerful. I want you to write about many of you who have experienced racism as a child or any violation or even the situation today or this whole week or past 2 weeks and beyond. Whatever age you are today, I want you to write to your younger self. The one who was violated, the one who experienced racism, didn't tell anybody, the one who had just gone through things and had life and society shape up and condition and program your mindset of what you see life is as today. I just want you to write to your younger self all that you have learned thus far in this situation, with the trauma, with the pandemic, with the racial tension, with the racism that's going on. Write to your younger self. What would you tell your 9-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, whatever age, your younger self? What you have learned and what you know now. What would you tell them? For some of you who, for the first time, was able to talk about the racial experience that you had, tell your younger self that it was not their fault. It wasn't your fault. You didn't deserve or done anything to be disrespected like that. It wasn't your fault for the fact that you kept it in and did not let anyone know. It wasn't your fault. You didn't know what to do. How could it have been expected for you to know what to do when you were young? You were trying to protect. And it's amazing. The way that we are, how we do anything is how we do everything.
Yes.
So the way that we are now play part with what we've learned, what we've experienced, what we had conceptualized, what we have conditioned ourselves in the process as well with the help of society to have us to now see the things that we see it as today, which played part with us while we carried continually the trauma in our lives. Mm-hmm. It's time to let your younger self go. It's time to let your younger self be released for the trauma. You'll find the difference that then if you give yourself permission to let your younger self let it go, then that's going to absolutely catch up with you to be able to release it as well. So it wasn't your fault. Tell your younger self it wasn't their fault. You didn't know what you didn't know. What is it that you learned so far during this whole entire experience that we all have gone through? And what you're hopeful for, what you're grateful for. It's time for you to release yourself. And you can absolutely do it. We believe in you. We know you can do it. And we're here to help you.
Definitely.
So, any questions, comments? Here I go acting like I'm in counseling session. Dani, any thoughts? Anybody?
This was like you said, this was a Freedom Friday.
Yes.
Relax and release. That was a word. That was a word. That was, you was out here just dropping mics left on it. You was in it. But I mean, I think we all needed to hear that, just to remind ourselves exactly that beautiful executed point, in that, it wasn't your fault. Sometimes we do internalize it, especially at those young ages, being so vulnerable. We internalize it, that it's our fault. And then remaining at that age and not really moving past that. So I think that's a great exercise for everyone, really, to put into place, to allow themselves to release, to proceed and start moving past that trauma, start moving through that trauma, and allowing that release so that you can move forward. Because if not, it's going to keep on coming up.
Yep. And now, because we're letting it go, so now we won't even have it to be a thing for us to continue with it. Because see, if it stays with us, then it continues on. But if it's not there, then it's nothing for us to continue with. It gives us that release to now live a different life, or to live it better than ever before. Because especially with what you said, Dani, in regards to because we've been conditioned to think that this is how life is. We normalized it. It became part of us. And it can be scary to let it go, because we're thinking that we're letting ourselves go. Like, we won't know who we are if we don't let go of what is really the trauma. But that part of us where we're like, okay, well, this is what made us, strong and stuff like that. But no, we just told you that, no, that's not the case. It's time to let it go. It's time to be happy. It's time to be free. It's time to be whole. It's time to be complete. It's just time to just be, period.
There you go.
That's all I got, because I can drop
it. I feel released already.
Hey, Charles, thank you for tuning in. We hope that this was helpful for you. And look, we'll be here again. If y'all have any questions or comments, you found value, please share this. And even if you didn't find any value, please share this. Because sharing, okay? You may just save a life in the process. But y'all make sure that y'all continue to tune in. Make y'all do your homework assignment. I'm going to check y'all by a week. Y'all got a week.
We're going to check in. We're going to check in.
Y'all got a week to do that assignment. I'm going to set up a post for y'all to now do your thread and let us know how's it going, so that we know how to best support you and serve you.
Definitely.
So, everybody, thank you for your time. We hope this was helpful for you today. Dani, thank you so much for just partnering with me on this courageous fight, for healing. Thank you so much for your presence, your knowledge, and just being a part of this. So really appreciate you.
More than a pleasure. More than a pleasure.
And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your time. And we look forward to being there with you again soon. If y'all have any questions or comments, but not just that, topics that you want us to talk about, please put in the comment section so that we can set everything up accordingly, so we can address whatever concerns that you have. All right, everybody. This is Dr. Sarah Renee Langley with Dani Robinson. Y'all have a great and fabulous Freedom Friday on purpose. Take care.
Bye, guys.